I got very interested in technical analysis and charted stocks and did all kinds of crazy things. If I hadn't read that book, I don't know how long I would have gone on looking for head and shoulders formations and 200-day moving averages and the odd-lot ratios and a zillion things. I fooled around doing a lot of things between about age 11 and 19 in the stock market. I did charts, I did all kinds of technical analysis. I read every book I could get on the subject. For about 8 years, I wandered around with technical analysis and doing all kinds of things, and then I read a book called The Intelligent Investor.
Value investing is the gold standard of investing as promulgated by Ben Graham, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, Li Lu, and others.
But there are other ways to invest, through technical analysis, derivatives, hedge funds, etc. Be that as it may, is Warren Buffett right in brushing off technical analysis?
Please watch until the end of the video to find out. If you like this video, please subscribe.
You just keep going. And
keep learning, that's the secret.
Keep learning.
Keep learning.
I started buying stocks when I was 11. I've been reading every book in the library on it. I loved it. My dad, it was his business, and I'd get to go down to his office and I'd read the books down there, and I saved the money, and finally, by the time I was 11, I could buy a stock, and I could tell you at that time, I went to New York Stock Exchange when I was 9. My dad took us to New York, each kid to New York once, and he took me. I went to the New York Stock Exchange, and I was in awe of it. And I could tell you how the specialist system worked and the odd lot arrangements, and I could tell you history of finance and all of these things. And then I got very interested in technical analysis and charted stocks and did all kinds of crazy things, hours and hours and hours, and saved money to buy other stocks and tried shorting and I just did everything. And then when I was either 19 or 20, and I can't remember exactly where I did it or something, I picked up a book someplace. It wasn't a textbook at school, but it was in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I looked at this book and I saw one paragraph, and it told me I'd been doing everything wrong. I just had the whole approach wrong. I thought I was in the business of trying to pick stocks that would go up, and in one paragraph, I saw that was totally foolish, and I left. I brought something that it's really interesting. Let's put up illusion 1. Done. Yeah, there we have it. Now if you look at that, some people will see two faces, some people will see a base, and some people will look a long time and only see two faces. But the mind flips from one side to another, and that's there's some name for it that they call it ambiguous illusions or something of the sort. There's other things that talk about aha moments, or in the old comic strips with Popeye, Wimpy would have a little balloon over his head and the light bulb would go on. There's this point where all of a sudden you see something you haven't seen. Well, it took me, I had an illusion that I was looking at, we'll say in that one, two phases. Let's go to the one labeled 2. And if you're looking at it from one side, it looks like a rabbit, and if you look the other way, it looks like you're looking at a duck. And the mind is a very funny place, and I think people call it an apperceptive mass when you have all kinds of things going on in your mind, and they go on for years, and they sit there and get lost, and then all of a sudden you see something different than what you were seeing before. Now, it took me stocks, which I was intensely interested in. I had a decent IQ, and I was reading and thinking, and and it was important to me to make some money on it. I had every motivation in the world. And then I read a paragraph, actually, in chapter 8, I think it was, of The Intelligent Investor. And it told me that I wasn't looking at the duck, I was looking, now it was the rabbit, whatever it may be. Whether you call it a light bulb, whether you call it, a moment of truth, whatever it may be. And that happened to me in Lincoln. I mean, it changed my life. If I hadn't read that book, I don't know how long I would have gone on looking for Head and Shoulders formations and 200-day moving averages and the odd-lot ratios and a zillion things. And I love that kind of stuff. Except it was the wrong stuff I was looking at. And I've had that happen, and Charlie's had it happen, I'm sure. It happens a few times in your life. And all of a sudden, you see something important that, why in the hell didn't I see this in the first place?
I was wondering how, since the stock market's so high right now, if it'd be smart for us to get involved now, or to wait till it goes down a little, or what?
Yeah, I can't tell you whether or not to buy stocks now generally. I think it's important that you save money, and whether you put it in the stock market or not, I don't think is terribly important. I think if you're interested in stocks, you should buy it, and you've got a little capital, you should buy a few. I mean, I don't think there's any way of learning about them better than experiencing it. Doing it on paper isn't the same. I can guarantee you, if you lose money on paper or lose real money, it's a different experience. And so I think you'll learn more about yourself if you do it that way. I bought my first stock when I was 11. I was at Rose Hill at the time, and I bought 3 shares of City Service Preferred at 38, and it went down to 27, which is something I still remember, even though I was 11 at the time. And then it went up to 40, and I sold it. I made $5 on my 3 shares after commissions, and then it went to 200 and something. So, I probably remember that a little better than if I'd been doing it on paper. And I fooled around doing a lot of things between about age 11 and 19 in the stock market. I did charts, I did all kinds of technical analysis, I read every book I could get on the subject, and I didn't do that well. I didn't do terrible, but I was really just floundering around. But that meant by the age of 19, when I read Ben Graham's book, I was at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, I went and bought this book called The Intelligent Investor, just come out, and it had an enormous impact on me. Now, if I hadn't done, in the previous 8 years, if I hadn't been all over the lot, I'm not so sure that book would have had the same impact on me. I mean, by that time, I was prepared to read Ben Graham's book, which changed my life financially in an incredible way. I mean, I wouldn't be up here today if I hadn't read that book. But yeah, part of life is getting prepared so that when something does happen that's significant, you can grasp the significance of it and know what to do with it. And I would say that first 8 years of fooling around, even though it produced nothing financially to speak of, produced a lot in terms of getting my mind prepared for when I really did read something that made sense. And so I was ready to accept it. And I actually went back and went to Columbia to study under Graham, and because of reading that book, and all kinds of things flowed out of it. So I would encourage you, if you're interested in the field, to do a few things. I'd still try and make it as intelligent as possible. I would try to stick with businesses I thought I understood. I'd still get out that sheet of paper, and I'd write, I'm doing this because, and just test my reasoning. And then I'd go back and read it a year later and see whether what you thought would be true turned out to be true. So I would always check myself. I believe in grading myself on everything. You know, doctors have postmortems, and they do it because they learn from postmortems. In business, people don't like to do postmortems. When I can be on the board of a company, and they can owners building plants or buying companies, and they never wanted 2 years later to run a check on how that decision turned out, because it can be unpleasant. But you learn from postmortems, and you don't want to learn. It's way better to learn from other people's mistakes than your own, but you got to learn from a few of your own too. And the time to do it is when you're young.
He wants to invest less like a lemming.
I will tell you what changed my own life on investing. I started investing when I was 11. I first started reading about it. I believe in reading everything in sight, and first started reading about it when I was probably 6 or 7 years old. But for about 8 years, I wandered around with technical analysis and doing all kinds of things. And then I read a book called The Intelligent Investor. And I did that when I was 19 down at the University of Nebraska. And I would say that if you absorb the lessons of The Intelligent Investor, mainly, and I wrote a foreword and I recommended particularly chapters 8 and 20, that you will not behave like a lemming, and you may do very well compared to the lemmings. We have here in the bookworm copies of The Intelligent Investor, and I think it's as great a book now as I did when I read it early, I guess, in 1950. You can't get a bad result if you follow the lessons of Ben Graham taught in that book.